Acworth gives buyers three things a lot of people want right now at the same time: better value, slower pace of life, and much better lake access. But those same strengths are also the exact reason some people cross it off their list. Because Acworth is a little further out, a little less central, a little less polished, and depending on what matters most to you, that can either feel like a huge plus or a deal breaker. So today I'm breaking down what it's actually like to live in Acworth, Georgia, so you can decide if it belongs on your short list. My name's Joel, I'm a local realtor here in Metro Atlanta, and I help people relocate here all the time. Let's get into it. If you're not super familiar with Acworth, it sits about 45 minutes northwest of Atlanta, right along I-75, just past Kennesaw and Marietta. And Acworth really does feel like one of those transition cities. It's still part of Metro Atlanta, but once you get through Acworth and kind of keep heading out, that's where really kind of this small town America starts. That's really part of the big appeal here. So if you want to stay plugged into Metro Atlanta, but you don't want to feel like you're living in the middle of the chaos, then Acworth starts to make a whole lot of sense. If you want to be more central to all sides of the Metro, then this is where the trade-offs start to show up pretty quickly, and this just might not be the place for you. There are really three big reasons people end up liking Acworth. The first is the pace. Acworth feels less packed in than a lot of the other suburbs people compare it to. Fewer people, less density, less of that constant suburban overload. The second is value. Acworth is more approachable than some of the nearby suburbs, especially if you're trying to get more house for the money without feeling like you've moved way out into the middle of nowhere. And the third and probably biggest differentiator of all is the lake. If you care about being close to Lake Altoona, Acworth is one of the best fits in this part of the metro. Not the only fit, but one of the most natural choices if you want lake life to be part of your regular lifestyle and not just an occasional weekend trip. That's really the draw. Now, let's talk about what that feels like day to day. Acworth is not the suburb you move to because it has the biggest lifestyle scene in North Metro. That's not really what the city is trying to be. What Acworth gives you instead is a day-to-day life that's a little easier, calmer, a little less frantic than some of the more built-up suburbs around it. Downtown Acworth is small, but that's part of its charm. It's walkable, it's pleasant, and it has enough restaurants, some local spots, and some really nice parks that make it feel like a real town center without trying to be some giant destination downtown. And that's really Acworth in one word, maybe: manageable. You can park, walk around, grab food, maybe hit a brewery, maybe head toward the park, and it all just feels really easy. So if your version of a good suburb is somewhere that feels a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less congested, Acworth does that really well. If you want the biggest energy, the busiest downtown, and the most happening social scene, there are other cities that I would certainly put ahead of it. Now, here's where Acworth gets meaningfully different. The lake is not just some nice bonus here. It's one of the main reasons people choose Acworth in the first place. A lot of suburbs can give you neighborhood stores, restaurants, and parks. Not many can give you access to Lake Altoona or Lake Acworth in a way that actually changes the feel of everyday life. And even if you are not on a boat every weekend, being this close to the water kind of changes the identity of the area. It gives Acworth a more recreational, outdoorsy feel than a lot of these other northwest suburbs that they just don't have. Places like Cobble Park, Acworth Beach, Logan Farm Park, Red Top Mountain, and kind of the broader Altoona area give you a lot of lifestyle value. Not just errands, not just places to eat, some actual things to do. So if you have a boat, know someone with a boat, want to rent one, or just like the idea of living near the water, this is one of Acworth's biggest strengths. And even if you are not a lake person, the fact that the city has that recreational identity still matters. That's a real separator for the city. Okay. Now here's where Acworth becomes really appealing for a lot of buyers. Acworth's median home price is around $421,000, which puts it in a really interesting spot in the northwest suburbs. Because once you start comparing that to nearby options, the value story gets clearer pretty fast. Kennesaw is a little lower, around $412,000. So if your goal is purely to spend as little as possible while staying in the solid kind of northwest area, Kennesaw is going to be tough to ignore for sure. Then on the other side, you've got places like Woodstock, where prices tend to run quite a bit higher, around $460,000. So if you choose Acworth over Woodstock, what you're usually getting for less money is not necessarily a worse suburb, just a different one. You're giving up some of Woodstock's bigger lifestyle pull, busier downtown, more central location, but in return, you're usually getting better value, a little bit more breathing room, and a city that feels kind of less built in. And what I actually like about Acworth is that the housing mix is broader than maybe some people expect. You've got larger amenity neighborhoods like Bentwater. You've got more upscale options like Governor's Town Club. You've got newer or newer-ish neighborhoods. And then you've got more value-oriented options too. So the market here is definitely not one note. And that matters because the Acworth buyer is not always the same person. Sometimes it's someone trying to just stretch their dollar. Sometimes it's someone who wants to stay in the northwest side, but doesn't want to pay Woodstock or Marietta prices. Sometimes it's the person who wants the lake lifestyle. Sometimes it's just someone who wants a suburb that feels, maybe a little less crowded. That's why Acworth works for more people than you might expect. Now, schools are where Acworth gets a little bit more complicated because this is not one of those cities where you can just say, I want to live in Acworth and assume the school situation is the same no matter where you are. Georgia school systems are divided by county lines, not city lines, and Acworth stretches across 4 different counties actually: Cobb, Cherokee, Bartow, and Paulding. So your school district depends heavily on exactly where in Acworth you buy. So I'm not gonna sit here and personally tell you which schools are good and which are bad. That's not my role, and it actually gets ethically dicey pretty fast. What I can tell you is that Acworth has solid options, but the school conversation here is very map dependent. This is one of those categories where I'll put, kind of the full breakdown on the screen, let you pause if you want, and keep the takeaway simple. If schools are one of your top filters, you need to understand the exact county and school district you're buying into. That's not a reason to avoid Acworth. It just means the details matter more here than they do in, some other places. Now, if you're trying to figure out whether Acworth is actually the right fit for your budget and your lifestyle, reach out anytime. I help people relocate to Metro Atlanta all the time, and I'd be happy to help you narrow it down. All the information is on the screen and in the description. Now, here's the part that knocks Acworth off for a lot of people. The first trade-off is centrality or, lack thereof. Acworth is not the suburb you choose because you want to be right in the middle of everything. You spend a lot of time in Roswell, Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, or maybe you work inside Atlanta. Acworth is gonna feel pretty removed from all of that. That could be a pro or a con. If you want more breathing room and you're okay with being farther northwest, that's great. If you want easier access to all sides of the metro, this is probably not your best fit. The second trade-off is jobs. Acworth itself is not a huge employment hub. There are certainly local jobs, of course, but that is not the headline here. A lot of people living in Acworth are commuting into larger nearby areas like Kennesaw, Marietta, or farther south, or ideally they're working remotely. So if your ideal setup is having major employers 10 minutes away, Acworth is probably not going to be the strongest fit for you. And the third trade-off is trendiness. Acworth is not trying to be the most happening suburb in Metro Atlanta. It feels a little bit more laid back, a little bit more transitional, a little bit less built up. Some people are going to love that. Others are going to drive through and think, I just want something with more energy, a little bit more convenience, maybe a little bit more status. That's why Acworth tends to work best for someone looking for, something very specific. Now, when it comes to safety, same rules apply as always. I'm not personally declaring one place safe and another unsafe. I'm just pointing to some third-party data, encouraging you to do your own research. According to Neighborhood Scout, Acworth's overall chance of being the victim of violent or property crime is 1 in 82. By the numbers, that puts it a little bit higher than a lot of communities across Georgia. But when you compare Acworth to places of similar size across the country, it comes out much closer to about the middle of the pack. So to me, the takeaway is not that Acworth throws up some huge red flag. It's that this is one of those cities where you want to pay attention to the specific neighborhood and do your own homework. And honestly, that's probably the right mindset almost anywhere. So who is Acworth actually best for? I think it makes the most sense for people who want better value, a little bit more breathing room, and likes the idea of lake access being part of everyday life. If you want to stay on the northwest side, don't mind being a little bit farther out, and prefer a more kind of relaxed pace, Acworth should absolutely be on your list. If you want closer job proximity, more central access, and a suburb with more energy and buzz, there are probably some other cities that I'd point you to first. And that's really the Acworth decision. It's not the suburb for everybody, but for the right person, it hits a really nice sweet spot between affordability, recreation, and some sort of, slower pace of life. And that's why Acworth keeps ending up on people's lists. If you are trying to figure out which suburb around Metro Atlanta actually fits you best, reach out anytime. I help people relocate here every day. I'd be happy to help you narrow it down as well. And if you're still in research mode, then just keep watching some more videos. I'll see you in the next one.